Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're based. Hopefully, we have people from all over the world with us today. My name is Liam. I'm one of the MBA recruitment managers here at Oxford Said, and I'm delighted to be spending the next hour or so with you talking around the Oxford MBA. Just quickly, if I can, there's a chat box. If people can just enter a yes in there, if you can hear me loud and clear, make sure there was no problems with the AV, with the tech. That would be really helpful. Thank you very much. Okay, everyone is saying yes. Thank you. That's a lot of yeses. Perfect. That's good news. Okay, so just quickly some logistics, some information. We have a number of people in the room with me, and we'll introduce them at different times of the webinar. So to my left is our MBA marketing manager. Her name is Sam. Sam is going to be monitoring the questions box. So if you have any questions at any time, please do type them, send them through whenever you feel it's the right time to ask. If it's a question that is relevant to the slide we're on, we might address it straight away. If it's a question that is relevant to the group as a whole, we'll try and get to it straight away. It may be that we save some of those questions until the end as well. Also, if the question that you're asking is relatively specific to you as an individual, then we might not have time to get to it, but I am going to provide a couple of email addresses that you can send those questions through to so that we can get back to you at a little bit of a later time. We also have a couple of existing students in the room with us, and we'll be introducing those a little bit later. They will be helping us get through the questions. So if you have any questions at all around life in Oxford, life on the MBA program, anything that they can help you with in terms of college experiences or how does it feel to be in the lectures themselves, then do send those questions through, and we'll make sure we have some time at the end to introduce those as well. So for the next half an hour or so, it probably will just be my voice that you hear. I apologize for that in advance, but there will be more variety in terms of the people that you'll hear from over the course of the webinar as a whole. So to get started, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the school itself and Oxford as a city. So people that may have been to Oxford before, this slide is probably very familiar to you. If you haven't been to the city before, but you've had a look maybe on Google Images, this may be the first thing that you see. This picture is very indicative of the type of architecture, the type of historic buildings that you might be able to find around the city. So in here we have the Radcliffe Camera, we have a couple of colleges, there's the Bodleian Library in the background, and so this is part of your experience if you choose to come and study your MBA here at Oxford Said. The other part of that experience is the business school itself, and this is the slide that you can see now. This is based just a few hundred meters away from the center of town, very close within walking distance to all of those colleges, but is very different from those colleges in terms of architecture. This was opened in 2003, 2004, and extended in 2013. And so it is much more of a modern, cutting-edge business school compared to the architecture, the history, and the tradition of the Oxford University as a whole. As a member of the business school, you will be a member of the University of Oxford, and so you will have access to both of those different worlds. Our MBA director, Ian Rogan, has this quote that we like to show in these presentations. I won't read through the whole thing, but I will focus a little bit on the quote at the end of that first paragraph about understanding the role of business in society. What we try and explore here at Oxford is that intersection between traditional business and the impact it can have on society as a whole. And as we go through the program details a little bit later on, we'll touch more upon that. But just generally speaking, if you come and do your MBA here at Oxford, we will be asking questions of you as a future global leader about how you can make decisions that will positively impact your business and your shareholders and your bottom line. Fantastic. Yes, we want those things, but also how can you positively impact your society, whether it's your workforce, your region as a whole, or your local community. And that is the lens that we look through when we explore a traditional MBA here at Oxford. And so for people that are very new to the idea of looking into Oxford, maybe this is your first interaction with us, you may or may not know that it's a one-year MBA. It's a 12-month program, and it is very 12 months. You start the middle of September in 1 year. you will come back and graduate in the first or second week of September the following year. So it is almost 1 week short of a full year. And people will ask me regarding the differences between a 1 year and 2 year program, why would I choose a 1 year MBA? And you can see some reasons on the screen in front of you. A lot of them will be linked to opportunity costs, funding possibilities, less time away from your career so you can get back there much more quickly and progress as you want to. One of the things that I would raise on this slide, and it's a positive as well as a challenge, I think, is that it's a very intense year. And maybe the existing students in the room a little bit later can talk a little bit to that around how they're able to overcome the challenge of trying to fit in everything that an Oxford MBA does bring with those two networks of people, your MBA cohort and your wider university cohort. They will individually bring a chunk of different things that you can get involved with, and you will have to become very good very quickly at prioritizing your time and really only doing the things that you really want to do that will add value to you either professionally or also as a person in whichever way you want to develop there as well. So it is an intense year, which can be good, but also can be a challenge. And so it's very important to just sound a very small word of warning here is that we will work you hard. There'll be a lot to get through, but it will be very rewarding when you get to the end of that program. And so onto the curriculum, and there's more detail about this in the following slides. The way that I would look at this slide is to think about the journey from individual learning in those core courses all the way through to challenging maybe a systemic issue in the applied learning. So we'll go through some core courses. You then have some electives that take place. On the top of those things, you'll have some integrative modules, and we'll talk about those in a second, some co-curricular activities, and those applied learning sections that we've just mentioned. And so this is what the year currently looks like. We break it down into 3 main academic terms. That's Michaelmas, Hilary, and Trinity, and you can see the dates that are associated with those terms below those titles. You'll notice that the core modules mainly happen in that first semester. You'll come in September, you'll have your MBA launch for a couple of weeks, you'll meet your cohort, you'll meet the careers team, you'll meet the director of the program, the dean of the school, some faculty, and then the core lessons really start from about the first week of October. And it's relatively intense all the way through to December. We run a 10-week or sometimes 11-week academic semester here in line with the wider university. And in that first 10 or 11 weeks, you will primarily be doing your core modules in that first semester. As the second semester happens and those core courses come to a close, your electives will start to take place. And then your third semester, April through to June, is really just solely electives in terms of the fundamentals of what you're doing throughout the day. On top of each of those, you'll see in each one of those terms, there is one integrative module that takes place. That could be entrepreneurship, global rules of the game, or responsible business. And these are mandatory sections that everyone will do that really will allow you to look through that lens that we mentioned before, that intersection between business and society. So understanding the skills of being an entrepreneur. And that doesn't mean that you have to want to be an entrepreneur or start your own company. It just means that you can value the skill set of what it takes to be an entrepreneur, to go into maybe an established company or a multinational and disrupt something in a way that you feel is a positive change to make. Global rules of the game looks at the globalization of business and what is right in one country versus another, one region versus another. And responsible business is looking at the decisions that a company will make based around, again, their profits, their bottom lines, and whether it's a responsible decision for their society as a whole. And so you will get a chance to explore each of those topics on top of those core business modules, those fundamentals of business that you would expect any MBA curriculum to include. With regards to electives, it's worth noting here that you can see in terms 2 and 3 in Hilary and Trinity, you'll take a combined total of 7 electives. We have a choice of between 35 and 40 electives, and they are relatively organic. They might change each year based on popularity, based on business need, based on new developments in the world of business, and you will choose 7 of those. So in your core courses, we'll generally split the MBA year down into 4 sections, sections A through to D. And in that section, you'll have around 80 students in there with you. We have around 320 people in the class, give or take, at any one time. So in your section of 80 people, you'll have your core courses. When it comes to the electives, that year as a whole is spread a little more thinly because people aren't choosing those same electives, and it's such a wide choice to pick from. So you might have a class size of maybe 20 or 30 people in your electives, depending on which ones you've chosen and how popular they are with other candidates in your year. In the summer, you have an option of one of three things, and it really is at the moment just one of those three things. You can do extra electives and choose to stay in school and get some more theory. You can go away and do an internship and try and gain some traction in a career that you're looking to forge ahead in, or you can do a strategic consulting project, which is a group project where you go outside of the school working in industry across the globe as a group of consultants for a company that is trying to streamline a process or is experiencing a problem that they want to have some support in helping become more efficient. So you act as a consultant, as a group from the school, working with a real company around the world. And you can pick any one of those three things, and hopefully to anticipate a question, how many people choose each one, honestly, roughly it's an even split. It's a third for each one. So people that are maybe looking to return to their same company or looking to return to a company they founded themselves and accelerate might choose electives to get some more deeper theoretical knowledge. People that are looking to pivot into a new industry might use the internship. People that are looking to gain the strategic consulting skills or become a consultant themselves might choose the consulting project. And so it really does depend on your own individual path that you're looking to take. Just finally on this slide, we have a few co-curricular activities that run along the bottom of that screen. These are not mandatory. These are designed to allow you to experience and learn skills and networking opportunities and theoretical knowledge based on individual sectors. So we have one for finance, one for consulting, and one for social impact. We are looking to increase these in the next year or so, and so if you're looking to apply to join, probably at the earliest now will be September 2020, then you will have more options than just those three available to you. And then the last thing on this slide is just the talent development program. This is run by the careers team and is designed to give you the chance to really develop those softer skill sets. So think of the curriculum as giving you the knowledge of business, the knowledge of the MBA, and the talent development program to give you the skills to be able to put that in place in practical use in working life. And so we'll ask you before you join the class actually to fill out some almost self-assessment questionnaires online that are designed to allow you to tell us which skills you think you possess, which skills you would like to work on. It could be public speaking skills or negotiation skills or things like consultative sales. And we'll develop a program that allows you to supplement your MBA learning with practical workshops or in-classroom learning or some online workshops that allow you to develop those skills. So when you graduate, you really have that complete skill set of not just understanding business to a theoretical point from your classroom lectures, but also the skills to be able to put that into use in the workplace. I can see a lot of questions coming through, so Sam will get to those as much as she can, and we'll bring some back towards the end. I'm just going to move away from the curriculum and more into just a rough breakdown of the class as it stands. So this year we have 314 people in the MBA. It can vary a little bit depending on the level of applications we receive, depending on the quality of applications that we receive. It will never really be more than about 330, 335. That is probably the maximum it will be, but it could be 314, it could be 320, 325. So it might vary by a few percent each year. It's always very diverse. So this year we have 63 nationalities and 93% from overseas. So only 7% of that 314 are from the UK. If you're looking to use the MBA to build a network and you would like that network to be a global one, then Oxford is well placed to help you do that. This current year, we have 39% of our participants to be female. We're looking to bring that up over the next few years. We're trending well in that area as we try and build our class coming in September of this year, 2019. And that's something that we're trying to strive towards, that equitable, nice 50-50 split. So we would absolutely encourage any strong candidate to apply, but we would definitely encourage any strong female candidate to apply, absolutely. The final two statistics haven't really changed over the last couple of years. The average work experience is roughly the same as it has been. The median GMAT score is roughly the same as it has been. We will talk about application requirements a little bit later on, bearing in mind that we do have webinars that are designed for application tips that will go into a lot more detail. But I will say at this stage that if you're sitting there thinking, well, my GMAT is lower than that average, my GMAT is lower than the advertised minimum on the website, please don't worry. There's always things that we can look at in terms of other strengths in your application when we view your application as a whole, rather than just focusing on one or two areas that we think might be a little bit weaker compared to other areas. So please don't panic. Please don't think that you can't apply just because you might not hit one of the requirements that we go through in a few slides' time. Talking about that diversity, and there's a point that I want to make on this slide as well once we've gone through these figures. You can see here that the vast majority of people will come from either North America, Asia, or Europe. Added together, that is roughly 3/4 of the class. We always try and aim for at least 10% of our class to be from Africa, simply because the Dean thinks that Africa will play a huge role in the future of business, and we're looking for the strongest African candidates, so that's something that we try and aim for. We would like to have more Latin Americans, and we would like to have more Middle Eastern candidates, as well as more people from Oceania. So again, if you're looking to apply and you come from one of those areas, you are absolutely welcome to apply to the school. We don't really have quotas. We won't cap the number of people we have. We will make offers based on where the quality comes from. If that happens to be 1 year more Latin America than Africa, or more Europe than North America, we really don't hold places back just based on citizenship. So please don't worry if you think that we're trying to cut down on the number of Asians or cut down on the number of North Americans. We're not. If you're strong enough and you have a compelling case to be included in the class, we will absolutely find a space for you. One more thing just on diversity before I move on. As well as being internationally diverse, one thing that I talk about with candidates when I meet them is that experientially, the class is very diverse as well. So if you think about maybe some other business schools that you're interested in or that you are thinking of applying to, it may be that they are very well known to be very strong in one sector. We don't really have a sector in terms of finance or consulting that we are known for or famous for. And because of that, we perform well in all of those sectors, and we attract people from a wide range of backgrounds. So if you think again about the network that you're trying to build, or the learning environment that you're trying to immerse yourself into, I would say going to a school that maybe is very well known for being very strong in finance, let's choose finance as an example, means that the vast majority of people attending that school might have finance on the mind. And so will have come from that sector or looking to break into that sector. And so when you think about the groups and the study work that you do in terms of teams, and you go around a table asking people, well, how would you solve this task that we've been given? Sometimes their experiences are relatively homogenous, which means their ideas are quite similar too. Here at Oxford, what I think we do very well is that when you go around that table in your study group, you'll have somebody that works from finance, certainly, and somebody that works in consulting, certainly. But you'll also have an engineer or somebody that works in healthcare or somebody that works in education. Somebody that might work for the UN or for an NGO or works in politics. And so all of a sudden it might become a slightly more rich environment to be involved with. So when it comes to diversity, think not just about where do people come from, but also what experiences and therefore what knowledge and ideas that they can bring with them that might be new and exciting for you to learn from too. Just a word on the careers team. This slide has a few headlines around the efficacy of our careers team in terms of getting people placements once they've graduated. So that big percentage on the left-hand side is the number of graduates from the most recent class we hold data for that had a job within 3 months of graduating. This class actually is now a couple of years old. We're waiting for the employment report to be published for the most recent graduating class that finished in September of 18. That should be with us in the next couple of weeks. You can see in the middle of the screen where those people go to, and the vast majority of people will choose to stay in the UK or at least in Europe, almost half of the class. And so if you're thinking of using Oxford maybe as the first step into a relatively permanent move into Europe, that path is very well trodden, and the careers team are very strong at placing you in companies that you would want to work for within those regions. Again, please don't worry. You can see from this statistic that everywhere is covered well, and the careers team does have a very long and wide reach. And so if you're looking to transition back to the country you've come from or go to somewhere like Asia, North America, the Middle East, we do have people based all around the world that are successfully finding the jobs that they're looking for, no matter what region they're aiming towards. And on the right-hand side, just a quick word about sectors. This, again, comes back to the point that I made about not being famous for being only strong in one area. You can see that finance and consulting probably are still the two most popular outputs, as you might expect from an MBA. Social impact is growing, technology is growing, but we still have representation and percentage growth in pretty much every sector that you could possibly think of. So again, talking about that diversity and where people are going, it also lends itself to the fact that you're not all going to be aiming for the same jobs and competing with each other to be employed once you've graduated. The Career Center is split mostly into these four main sections, and this is an idea of what you might do in terms of who you might interact with depending on the sector that you're looking to get into. So we have these pockets of excellence in global industry, finance, social impact, and also in consulting, and you will work with one of those pockets more than maybe the other three, depending on the path that you want to take. So you can see the specialist career programs for each one of those pockets of excellence in that middle row, and then the common areas of support are those red and yellow circles underneath. And regardless of what sector you're looking to get into, those red and yellow circles are available to everybody. Within that pocket of industry, within that pocket of excellence, for example, we do have people that have worked in industry. It's not just academic people working on the careers team in a business school, it's people that have been working in that role themselves. And so, for example, the person I'd like to talk about here is a guy called Tom Lawrence, who used to work for Amazon. Tom was in charge of recruiting MBA talent into Amazon based in London, and we asked him to join us, and now he's kind of almost joined the other side where he's now preparing the MBA talent to be hired by tech companies like Amazon. So he has the knowledge of being in that position himself. He has the contacts and the networks of his time working for Amazon, working in the sector, and he's brought that knowledge and those contacts with him, and now is a very strong member of the careers team in terms of preparing people for their job in that sector post MBA. And we have people like Tom in each one of those pockets of excellence. So he's the one that I always go to, but he's not alone in what he does and how well he does it. One of the really distinct aspects of an MBA at Oxford is the college system. As I mentioned earlier on, you are a member of the University of Oxford first and foremost, and also a member of a college. And forgive me if people are familiar with colleges that are listening. I think the level of understanding of colleges might vary in the audiences today. And so if you've heard this before, I'm sorry, but for the people that are new to the college idea or the college system, essentially what it means is that there are 38 different colleges around the university, and you can be a member of one of those. And so the best way to look at it is that your 9 to 5 working day is spent on the business school campus. That is a department of the university, and departments run the programs that you study. So as a department, say a business school runs the business degrees. So the Masters in Financial Economics is run here, the MBA, the Executive MBA, those kind of areas, that's in our department. Your 9 to 5 working day is in your department, in your business school, and then the rest of your time will be spent as a member of your college. And so in the college, you'll have accommodation, should you choose to accept it. You'll have a dining hall, you'll have a library, you'll have some sporting facilities, you'll have clubs and societies that you can join. And within your college, you'll have some MBA students with you, but also some other students of the wider university studying anything and everything from an undergraduate in mathematics through to a master's in philosophy, through to a PhD in something like brain surgery or rocket science. And it really is anything and anything in between those things. So if you think about that second network that you can build outside of the MBA, you won't be spending your entire year at Oxford talking to business school students about business. You'll have plenty of opportunities to meet other people in other disciplines at different stages in their career and have some of the most interesting conversations and meet some of the most incredible people you'll ever have the chance to meet within that college network. As a member of the MBA, you can tell us which college you would like to be a member of. That process happens after you've been interviewed and after you've been offered a place. You pay your deposit and then you tell us which college you would like to be considered for. We then match you with that college if they have space remaining, and then you join that college when you join the MBA. A little bit more detail about the colleges can be found on this slide. The Oxford Union, in terms of the debating chambers, in terms of where you'll have Global leaders in politics, in business, even famous sports people, famous celebrities will come and talk about their careers there. We'll have some distinguished speaker events, both in the business school and in the wider university. And there are societies and clubs and sports that you can join and get involved with. And if you speak to alumni, they'll probably say you have time to maybe do two things well outside of the MBA and all of its demands. And one of those might be a sports team that you want to join. One of those might be a society that you'd like to be a member of. One of them might just be going down to London at the weekend and sampling the nightlife in the capital city. It can be anything that you want to. You will have time to do it. But at the same time, as I mentioned at the beginning, you will have to learn how to prioritize your time effectively very early on in your year, because it can be quite intense. In terms of requirements for the MBA, and this is a slide we're not going to spend too much time on, simply because, as I mentioned before, we have upcoming webinars that are designed solely for application tips. But generally speaking, this is what we're looking from you when you apply. An undergraduate degree with a GPA in the US system of a 3.5 or higher, or in the UK system, that's a higher second and upper second, so a 2-1. Again, none of these are concrete in terms of if you have a GPA lower than that, it doesn't preclude you from applying. So please don't sit there and think, well, that's me, I can't apply. That is not the case with Oxford. We ask for a professional experience of around 2 years, minimum of 2 years. The average, as you saw from the previous slides, is 5, and that hasn't changed that much over the last few years. GMAT or GRE score, we don't have a preference which one you go for. GMAT and GRE are both equally accepted, so find the one that suits your strengths the most effectively. I would say out of all of the things on the screen in front of you, the GMAT or the GRE will probably take you the most time in terms of preparation, studying, finding a time that you can sit the exam, maybe giving yourself a chance to sit a second exam just in case. So if you're at the beginning of your application process, I would say map out what the GMAT or the GRE prep looks like and get that in place first. Everything else can fall in quite easily once you've got that completed. We ask for a couple of essays. Neither of them are that long. The first one is 500 words. The second one is 250 words. At the moment, I will probably not talk about what the essays ask for, just in case over the summer we change the prompt and change the question. But traditionally, one of those essays has been looking at a statistic or trend that has shocked you and asking you how you might use the MBA to address or reverse that trend. That's the kind of thing that we look for in that main essay. References, we ask for 2. One can be academic, one can be professional. They can both be academic or both be professional. Please don't fall into the trap that some people do that think I'll find the most senior person that I can, the CEO, and I'll ask them to write something for me. If they don't work that closely with you, if they haven't seen you on a day-to-day basis in your role and talk to your strengths in a very practical way, that can be a bit of a waste of a referee. So choose the 2 people that know you the best. Could be a direct supervisor, doesn't have to be a direct supervisor. It could be a client that you've been working with. It could be a personal mentor. It can be anybody that you would like. But please, for your own sake, make sure it's people that know you well. If English is not your first language, or if you did not study a degree level qualification at an English-speaking university, then you will need to provide a second form of English proficiency. Either that's going to be a TOEFL or an IELTS. Now, this can sometimes be the one that we are most strict about, simply because you have to be able to get involved in conversations and understand the methods and the medium of learning within the school and within the seminars. So there are some advertised minimums on our website, and I would encourage you to look at this if you think that the IELTS or the TOEFL is necessary for your application. And I would spend as much time as possible to make sure you achieve the minimum that we look for in those sections, because that can sometimes be an obstacle on the way to interview or an obstacle on the way to an offer of a place on the course. With regards to application deadlines, this slide is in here simply to show you that we had 4 windows this year. They're all in red because they've all passed. We anticipate having a similar schedule for next year. We don't know the exact dates yet, but it will probably follow something akin to what you can see on the screen. So we'll either have 1 or 2 stages before Christmas. We'll have a stage in January, certainly, and we'll have a stage or 2 after January, depending on how many we've had before Christmas. And so, Again, please don't take this slide as proof that it's going to be exactly the same next year. I don't think it will be drastically different, but those stages will be on our website as soon as we have them finalized with the Central University over the next month or so. So please keep looking out for that. I would say almost definitely stage 1 is going to be in September, and that will allow you to apply in September 19 to join the class in September 20. So just to clarify, in case people are wondering, it is too late now to apply to join us in September 19. The final deadline has closed, and we're currently in the process of interviewing those candidates. So you can no longer apply to join in this September. With regards to scholarships and funding, the message that I want to really get across from this slide is that there's a lot of it, and there's a whole variety of money that we will give out to candidates. Generally speaking, and this is an important point to make, is that we have two main sources of funds for you as a candidate. One is a Said Business School Foundation, and anything that falls under that foundation umbrella, we control here at the business school, and we will give out at every one of those application stages, even the final stage. So if you've heard in the past that the final stage should be avoided because scholarships are all gone, that is not true here at Oxford. It may be a case that some of them will definitely be gone because we'll be giving them out from stages 1, 2, 3, and 4. So there might not be as many options left, but there was always funding from that foundation source of money. The other source of money is in partnership with other organizations. So for example, SCOL, the SCOL Center for Social Entrepreneurship, they have their own scholarship that we kind of manage in partnership with them. They would have final say on who is shortlisted. They would have final say on who is given the funding, but we work closely with them in terms of people that have been admitted onto the MBA and input into those decisions. For those scholarships that have a partnership with other organizations, they will almost definitely have their own deadlines that you have to meet. So using SCOL as an example, you must apply by the January stage to be able to be considered for SCOL. Beyond that, there's also an essay you would have to write explaining why you think you fit the SCOL profile. There was also an interview stage after the essay has been submitted, should you be shortlisted for interview. So as well as your interview for the MBA place itself, there were also some scholarships that will carry essays and interviews for the funding itself as well. On our website, there is a very useful tool that allows you to search for the scholarship options that are open to you. And I would recommend that you spend some time as you're formulating your application to understand which ones you qualify for, and more importantly, which ones of those have their own deadlines and their own application requirements for the funding itself. It's a very important step that I would hate anyone to miss because they didn't have the time to research which ones were the best ones for them. For the ones that we have control over ourselves, they'll go to a range of people. It's not just academic merit, it's not just the people that have the highest GPA or GMAT score. It can be regionally based, it can be gender based. We have a Forte Women's Scholarship, for example. It can be profile based in terms of we're looking to make sure that that diversity in the class is maintained. And so if you can offer something in terms of your experiences or your working history that we can't find in another candidate, then it might be that we can support you with some funding for that reason as well. So it's not just the academically strong that will get the scholarships. We will look at everybody, we'll look at the cohort we're trying to build, and we'll make a decision at the end of each one of those application deadlines. So you'll receive your offer of a place, and then a week or so after that, once the financial committee have had time to meet, you'll then receive an offer of funding should you be selected. Just one final note to make here is that if you're not successful, if you apply, say in September in stage 1, and you don't get funding, you get a place but no funding, then your name will be brought back in every subsequent stage to be considered again with the people that are applying in those stages too. So people often ask me, is it advisable to apply as early as possible? And there is an argument to be made that stage 1 has some significant benefits. Firstly, the scholarships are yet to be given out, so there's more to go around, there's more to choose from. The college places are yet to be given out, and so you'll have more chance of getting your choice of college. And also, we haven't yet started to build our cohort. And so if we have a candidate whose application is strong, but maybe not as remarkable as others, in stage one, we might lean towards interviewing anyway because we have space to play with. As those stages progress and our class becomes more full, that capacity to be able to lean towards interview becomes harder to really exercise, simply because we no longer have that space in those final stages. And so a strong but maybe less remarkable than some of those really remarkable candidates in stage 4 may not be interviewed, whereas in stage 1, because we have more space to play with, may have been interviewed. So aim for whichever window is the best one for you. That is my overall piece of advice. Do not rush this application. It's an application to Oxford. It's going to be a significant chunk of your time, and it's a challenge to get into an MBA anywhere. But if your timeline works with one of those earlier windows, then great. If your timeline doesn't work with an earlier window, please don't worry. As I mentioned before, we have funding available all the way through the year. We have spaces available all the way through the year. Do not rush your application, submit, and then think, I could have done that better. That is not a good feeling to have. And you also cannot apply again in that same 4-window cycle. So if you apply in stage 1 and are not successful, you cannot apply in stages 2, 3, or 4. You have to wait for the next academic cycle to apply again. So make sure that when you submit, it is the best version that you can put forward of yourself and that you're happy with all the materials that you're submitting. Next steps, we have an option that we can look at your CV. We don't really do official CV reviews, but if you speak to myself or one of my colleagues and you happen to send your CV over, we'll always try and give you as much feedback as we can and point out where your strengths are and what we'd like to see more of. Go into our website and download a brochure. As I mentioned before, the GMAT, the GRE is going to be probably the biggest chunk of your commitment, so make sure you've planned that ahead of time. We have open days here at the school, so if you're local or if you're traveling with work or you happen to be on holiday or on vacation in the UK and it coincides with an official open day, then please do come and join us. We have one coming up at the beginning of June the 7th, and so if you're around, sign up, come and see us. If you're traveling and it's not an official open day but you want to come and see the school, we can absolutely almost do that as well. So anytime you want to come and see us, just give us a little bit of notice, and there's a campus visit request form on our website. Fill that in, let us know when you're looking to come and see us, and we'll make sure that we have someone to meet you, give you a tour, and hopefully get you meeting some existing students or observing a lecture if any are happening on that day. And then start your application. So at this stage, at this time of year, I would say probably don't start your application online just yet. The system that we use for applications will be taken down probably around July. In fact, it might already be closed now. It will not open again probably until the first week of August. So you won't be able to go online and start your application just yet anyway. But there are other things that you can do. You can start drafting your essays. You can start thinking about your referees. You can start preparing for that MBA, for the GMAT, forgive me. And so start thinking about that now, so when the application system does open, you're in a position to get things in time for that September deadline, if that's what you're aiming towards. Just briefly, in terms of upcoming events, we have a few webinars that are designed to get you ready for that application coming up over the next few weeks. We have one coming up in just a couple of weeks on an Africa focus. That is not only for African candidates, but for anyone that has an interest in business in Africa or working in Africa or learning more about what the school does in the Africa space. We have a couple of webinar series around existing students from Europe and from Australasia talking about their experiences. One designed for application tips, one solely for the 1+1 MBA. If you're interested in that program, then please do dial into that webinar. And then again, some more application tips, and then funding and scholarships towards the end of the summer. So if any of those are of interest to you, we'd love to see you on there. Please do come along. And at the same time, if you have any final questions, this is my final slide. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner that there's a couple of email addresses there that you can feel free to get in touch with. So there's me personally. If you have any questions or any comments about your application, any questions you have about the application process, the school, the city itself, we'd be very happy to hear from you with regards to that. If you have a general question about the CV review, or if you'd like to get in touch with the team as a whole, then please feel free to use the MBA-recruitment email address. Either of those will be absolutely open to you. Please bear in mind that I sometimes travel with work, and so my inbox is often looked at as much as possible, but when I'm on a transatlantic flight, maybe not that much at all. So if you're looking for a general question with a speedy response, then the MBA recruitment address probably is the best one for you. If you have a very specific question about your profile as an individual and you're happy to maybe wait a couple of days for me to get back to you, then email me. More than happy to take that from you as well. Folks, thank you very much for your patience so far, for your attention. I'm just going to mute the microphone just for a few minutes while we walk through some of the questions that we're going to address, and then we'll come back and introduce the existing students, and we'll talk to you again in just 2 or 3 moments from now. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for holding with us there. We've got a few questions lined up. So first of all, I'd just like to introduce the students that are in the room with us. So we have Sergio and JJ. Sergio, if you want to just tell us maybe a little bit about yourself before we get into the questions, and then JJ will come to you next.
Thanks, Liam and Sam. Hi, JJ. Yeah, well, I'm from Costa Rica. My background is commercial medical devices, working back home. So I came here with my wife. I've been thoroughly engaged in the program, making the most out of not only the business school, but getting outside the business bubble and enjoying the lifestyle, the life in Oxford, meeting different people, colleges, and yeah, looking forward to hear some questions. Liam, I don't know if...
Well, let's give JJ a chance to introduce himself, and we'll come back to you in a moment, Sergio. Thank you.
Hi everyone, JJ here from South Africa. My background's in finance, accounting, and consulting, although I've spent a long time wrestling with questions around personal development, mental health, and organizational emotional intelligence. And so, yeah, I've really found space on the program in this year to sort of marry these two halves of myself. I suppose the consultant and the organizational behavior interest. Yeah, and pleasure to be chatting to you guys today.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I think, Sergio, let's ask you this first question because you have come with your wife, as you mentioned. The question is, what support is available for students that bring, and the question says family or spouse, but let's talk about spouse. So what support have you been able to experience for you and your wife in the program?
Well, I would say that in terms of support, the most important resource you'll find is the partners network here at the school with all the different students that come along with their partners. So I think that's going to be the number one support resource you're going to find. Incorporating your partner, your spouse into the program and making sure he or she feels comfortable and engages with all the people, not only students, but as I said, the partners and meeting different people is going to be the top resource. Because this is a starting point to find out how to manage yourself and your partner across the different activities in the university. Many different situations will arise, housing, I don't know, job seeking for partners, all of these activities. The key is engaging with the partners network and also getting to know the students as well.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to the next question, and JJ, probably applies to both of you, but we'll start with you if you don't mind. The question is, apart from the advantages of the one-year program, what would the students say was so unique about Oxford that made it their first choice? And then there's a second part, which I'll take a little bit later. It says, what does Oxford itself think makes it unique to be this person's first choice? So from a student's point of view, if you don't mind, JJ, telling us a little bit about your decision-making process, why were we considered by you, and then ultimately why were we chosen by you, and then Sergio will come to you second.
Right, so I think one of the priorities for me in applying for the program to begin with was finding a program where it wasn't about stamping out CEOs or stamping out consultants or stamping out a particular type of person, but rather creating an environment where you could really flourish, whether you were interested in going into business, into politics, into philanthropy. And so sort of that space to grow was really important for me. And I'd say Oxford really ticked those boxes for me along a couple of metrics. One, you're part of this fantastic 800-year-old institution alongside being part of a cutting-edge business school. And it means that you have access to networks, to thinking, to events. I mean, I remember the first week where you're trying to decide between going to famous book launches or go listen to presidents of countries. Those are the kind of choices, the Oxford problems that you have. So one, you're part of this wider university, and I'd say the second major reason was really the international cohort and the diversity in that cohort. So not only are you speaking to people, as you mentioned, from nationalities around the world, but within our class we have people from finance, from marketing, from HR, but we also have pastors and doctors and lawyers and NGOs. So I think really being able to explore all of these facets meant that I was going to find space to grow into the person I wanted to be before I left.
Thank you. And Sergio?
Yeah, just like building up on what JJ just said, I think he used the word space to grow. I think that the key is that in Oxford you have infinite space to grow. I mean, the possibilities are endless. This is a universe with so many possibilities of things you can engage in, be it outside the Said community, in the wider university galaxy, if you will, or even inside Said. You can just, the amount of activities and resources are endless. So I would say in that sense, it was an easy choice for myself. Choosing Oxford provides you the opportunity to either, if you want to choose to be inside the business bubble and do the straightforward classic consulting kind of pathway, you can do that. But if you want to like really enrich your life with a year with meeting people from all over the world, doing a lot of different things, engaging, as JJ said, going to the union, meeting presidents, doing the college interaction, not only with your college but with other different colleges. So it's like a small galaxy in which you can enrich yourself whichever way you choose to do so. So that for me, it was pretty simple. It was pretty straightforward. The Oxford problem, as JJ said, is what do you choose to focus in, and how do you prioritize your time?
Thank you. And then from Oxford's point of view, let me speak on behalf of the school, which is a dangerous thing to do. But what do I think makes us unique? It's a number of things that I've touched upon. So diversity, both in terms of international, but also experience. It's that college network that outside of maybe Judge in Cambridge, you probably won't find that anywhere else. But also it's that focus we have on social responsibility in all of its forms. And so thinking about a traditional MBA where you will learn the fundamentals of business, you'll become excellent at those fundamentals of business, but at the same time viewing it through this lens where if you speak to the dean, he's very serious about finding this group of global future leaders that understand that their position of influence later on in their careers carries a level of responsibility that allows them to make decisions that are both good for business but also good for their society. And we touched upon that at the beginning. And so those are the three things that I think probably make Oxford a unique experience compared to some of the other business schools that you may be considering. Another question, please, and we'll start with you, JJ, again here, is how did you choose your college? Like, what was it you were looking for from your college experience? The question says, did you get your first pick? Do you get a second pick? So if you could maybe, and I can talk to some of that towards the end as well, if you can elaborate, please, on the decision-making process that you individually went through when it came to the college that you're in.
Sure. So on the technical side, you submit one application to one college, and my understanding is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that if you don't land in your first choice, then you sort of are allocated afterwards depending on the spaces that are available.
Correct.
So yeah, you do want to arrive at a clear choice before you submit that. In terms of my own personal experience and what I might advise is definitely to reach out to anyone within your network, or anyone within the wider network here at Oxford, current students, former students, and just get a sense of what the different colleges can offer you and what it is that you're looking for. Because I'd say the variety of experiences that you have depending on your college is quite vast. So I'm in Pembroke College. It was my first choice. I applied in the first round, and I decided on Pembroke College after chatting to a good friend of mine and getting a sense of, well, I really wanted to have a very sort of Oxonian experience. And so we look out over Christchurch, which is the Harry Potter College that you may be familiar with, as well as hear the bells of the close by churches. And that for me was very much immersing myself in the middle of the town, getting a sense for what's going on. You might choose your college along different dimensions though, depending whether you want to live in college or outside of college, whether you want sort of an 800-year-old experience, or some of the younger colleges have much more modern facilities with the I guess like fewer maintenance issues. And you might pick depending on the sports available at those colleges as well. So I would definitely say speak to people who have been here and then get a sense of what it is that you're looking for before you apply.
So yeah, so in my case, what I would just like to say is that there are many cool colleges besides Christchurch, right?
Yeah.
You can, please like talk to someone who's been here, and there are many possibilities of a lot of cool, interesting colleges that have a lot to offer besides Christchurch, besides the Harry Potter College, and who will admit you as well, right? So my college is CATS. It's pretty cool. They have a lot of activities. The infrastructure is amazing. So just like JJ said, do some research, and you'll have plenty of options to choose a nice college.
So as JJ mentioned, you get your pick of college, and we'll put you forward to that college, who will then make a decision on whether to accept you, and that decision is based on a number of things. And then if you're unsuccessful there, we will find a place for you somewhere. Part of your decision-making process might also include the fact that there's a different number of MBAs in each one of those colleges. So St. Cat's, where Sergio is, probably has 30 so MBAs. JJ, your college has how many?
Pembroke's got 10.
Okay, and it will vary as well. So Green Templeton College might have up to 70, and Christchurch, that the guys have mentioned, might take 2 or 3, if that. And so part of your strategy about getting the college you want should involve, well, how many places were initially on offer anyway? And we can have these conversations and be very open about how many spaces are left when the time comes. But that should also form part of your decision. Do you want to be in a college where you have a significant number of your classmates in that college with you? Or do you want to be maybe forced outside of your comfort zone a little bit to maybe have 3 or 4 MBAs with you, but also go and talk to those wider disciplinary, those other fields of study students that are in that college as well? So that's probably part of your decision-making process too. A question around the average day of an MBA student. So let me just very briefly talk about, in that first semester, you'll probably have 4 days a week, 2 seminars each day, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon. That's those core modules. You'll keep 1 day a week free of any lessons, which is designed for maybe working with the careers team, or catching up on some reading, or doing some study group work with your team. This year, that day is a Wednesday. I believe next year we're looking for that day to be a Friday. It might change again when the time comes that you choose to apply. So outside of that very rough detail that I've given there, JJ, can you talk a little bit about what you've experienced in terms of your day-to-day work, and has that changed as the semesters have gone?
Absolutely. What does a day not include? So I'd say, as a precursor, it depends on your priorities. For some people, it's very career driven, and so they'll spend a lot of their free time outside of the business school, even outside of Oxford, looking at jobs, interviewing for jobs. Because careers aren't a huge priority for me over these first 2.5 terms. There's definitely the academic component, and there is a fair amount of class, be it your electives or be it your core modules. But then pretty much every other minute of the day between waking up and going to sleep can look as diverse as we're working on the entrepreneurship project now and interviewing with potential future clients. I'm attending an art exhibition sort of talk this evening, and then having dinner with the speaker afterwards. You might go through to the union after class and watch a debate, and then go out and have dinner with your classmates afterwards. So I think the difficult part, as Sergio said, is prioritizing, and then also finding enough time to sleep, eat, and do some exercise so that you can keep showing up day after day. But I guess in summary, never boring.
Yeah, I would say that a typical day is anything but typical. So you just like engage, try to keep up with all the activities. It depends on your priorities. I would say you have 3 broad components. You have the careers, you have the academics, and you have, let's call it, social aspect of the program. So you might have to pick and choose 2 out of those 3, I would say. So if people are very career driven, they're going to be just working with careers from start, trying to network as much as they can, engaging in all the Wednesday workshops and services that careers provides. Maybe traveling to London. I don't know. Quite a lot of activity in terms of careers, as much as you want. So it depends. People, I know people that have gone that way. Some people are making the most out of the academic aspect of the program, engaging with teachers, meeting with professors, going to talks, doing the union, and then the social life. It's, I think, an all-encompassing reality here. So you just have activities. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, and in between, anything you want. I mean, it's so a typical day is a non-typical reality. So it varies across the terms, I would say. At the beginning, you sort of try to learn and explore everything the university has to offer, and you try to get to know as much as you can your classmates, which is, I would say, the first priority. And then after that, you start learning what sort of activities you want to engage with, and then you start learning to prioritize.
Thank you. And so I'm just conscious of the time. There's a few questions left that I just want to run through quite quickly, but they're relatively simple, just applying to the application process itself. So I'll take these. In terms of work experience, what is the range? We have people that come in with maybe a year or two and just about meet that minimum requirement that we ask for, to people that are like 15 or 16 years worth of work experience. There's no real minimum, provided that you have a strong application. There's no real maximum. If you're very experienced, we might ask you to consider who you want to surround yourself with, and whether the executive MBA with people of a similar experience level to you might be a better cohort to be a member of, because you can learn more from them. Whereas if you're very experienced in the full-time MBA, you'll likely be the most experienced person in the room, and what is there to learn from your peers? So that's a question we might ask you, but again, there's no real maximum age for the MBA, not such. With regards to GMAT or GRE, do we have a preference? No, we don't. Do we look at the integrated reasoning and analytical writing assessment sections on the GMAT? We do. As you probably know, it's the verbal and the quant sections that give you that overall score. That's the first port of call when we look at your GMAT score. But we will look further into those other sections as well upon receiving your application. It does have to be, and this is a good question, do we accept GMAT scores taken within the past 5 years? Yes, but it's only 5 years. So if you've taken your GMAT 6 years ago, I'm sorry to say you will need to retake that before you apply. It has to be within the 5 years of taking the test. And then just one final question, how many candidates do we receive each year, and how many candidates do we select at each round? It's difficult to give exact numbers. What I will say here is that we interview and offer to the same percentage of people in each window. So the application numbers might vary. Historically, January is our busiest window for applications. We'll get more people applying then, but we'll hold more interviews and we'll offer more places in January because the numbers are higher. So the ratio stays the same throughout each one of those windows, even if the actual number changes. The only caveat to that would be that the final deadline, when the class is beginning to get a little bit full, might by its nature be a bit more competitive, and we may interview fewer people or a smaller ratio than we have in the other windows. Everyone, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sticking with us as we've gone over the hour just a little bit. Thank you to Sam for manning the questions so well. Thank you, JJ. Thank you, Sergio, for coming to join us. This is being recorded, so if you want to listen to any of this again in the next day or so, you'll have an email coming along with the recording on there. Those email addresses are to be used at any time you would like to, and please do dial in and join us for a webinar in the future. So thank you for your attention, and hopefully we'll speak to you soon, and hopefully we'll see an application coming in from you in the not too distant future. Thank you again, and bye for now.